Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers, reporting from a north central Kansas wheat field. As you can see, there's not much there. Well, on the program this week, the chairman of the House Agriculture Committee and 1st District Congressman Tracey Mann were in this area at the Justin Knopf farm talking with a lot of folks about the farm bill. That's going to be our focus this week. We'll also have updates from Kansas corn, Kansas wheat, and the Kansas Farm Bureau, along with the weekly update for the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinion.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat, online at kswheat.com.
In agriculture news, farmer sentiment improved modestly in April in the Purdue University CME Group Ag Economy Barometer. It reversed a 2-month decline, up 6 points to 123. The current condition index rose 3 points, while the index of future expectations rose 7 to 120. More producers expecting prime interest rates to either hold steady or possibly decline over the next 12 months, and felt that way earlier in the year. Perceptives on farmland values moved a little bit in April. Fewer producers expecting values to decline in the upcoming year. More producers looking for values actually to rise. Now, when asked about the possibility of a new farm bill passing this year, responses were mixed, with 40% saying the passage was at least somewhat likely. 30% of respondents think the passage is at least somewhat unlikely. 40% consider crop insurance the most important farm bill title, followed by the commodity programs as well as conservation. Senate Ag Committee Chair Debbie Stabenow told farm groups this past week that the cost of fertilizer and diesel fuel have dropped sharply since last year. That undermines a key argument the organizations are making to increase support rates in the major commodity programs. She said, "We're going to watch it closely because hopefully last year was an anomaly," she said. "When we look over 10 years," she said, "hopefully, this is just something that happens because of the number of bad circumstances that come together." Earlier in the week, the Senate held a Senate Ag Subcommittee hearing representing some 10 commodity groups. She pushed back on the idea organizations are united in what changes Congress should make to ARC and PLC. She said there's no consensus on how to address all the programs because different regions have different responses, she told the group. And Kansas has played host to a couple of influential members of Congress over the last few days. One of those being ranking member for the Senate Ag Committee, John Bozeman from Arkansas, was here at the guest of Senator Roger Marshall, spent time in Kansas City as well as in Manhattan to hear from leaders on Farm Bill and conservation priorities. House Ag Committee Chair G.T. Thompson from Pennsylvania, guest of 1st District Congressman Tracey Mann on a farm near Assyria in central Kansas. They heard directly from Kansans on what they would like to see in the upcoming farm bill. Several other congressional staffers are in the state also learning more about Kansas agriculture. The House is not in session this week. So we'll have comments from Chairman Thompson and also some comments maybe from Representative Tracey Mann after they concluded that informational hearing that took place earlier this week near Salina. So we'll be back with more in just a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com.
Welcome back. We have some comments from the chairman of the House Ag Committee, Glen Thompson, who was near Salina earlier this week after he heard from a lot of folks about what they want to see in a farm bill. House Ag Chairman G.T. Thompson in Kansas. talking with farmers. What are your overall impressions of what you've been learning out here?
Well, first of all, it's great to be back in Kansas. I was here about a year ago as a part of my perpetual barnstorming tour of American agriculture. And just to be back, great to be back in this breadbasket. And I really appreciate. We had a packed house here, standing room only, and just really appreciative of the people taking. Really dedicating a morning to come out and to join a good friend and colleague of mine, a great agriculture leader, Congressman Tracey Mann, and together we were, hosted this listening session, and it was great because now we're going to bring these voices, the voices of Kansas agriculture, back to Washington to help us write a highly effective farm bill.
There's been a lot of discussion on the debt ceiling. Agriculture's been kind of thrown right in the middle of it.
Yeah. Are
cooler heads going to prevail, and are you going to be able to get a bill that's going to pass working with both the House and Senate?
Well, I think the bill that we passed is a good bill. And the fact that we were able to pass one and fairly quickly, having been around Washington for about 15 years and having experienced a number of debt ceiling bills. Sometimes there was no action until the 11th hour, and that was not the case this time. This was done promptly, and I think that the American people appreciate that. And it was done reasonably when you really look at what's in this bill. The aspects that were directly in the jurisdiction of the Agriculture Committee, I'm so appreciative to Speaker McCarthy and the leadership team. They came to me and asked me what we should put in there. We didn't want to put something in there that was going to blow up the farm bill. We wanted things that were reasonable, and those are the things that specifically in the nutrition title is what they asked me for, and that's what we were able to put things in there that was modest and reasonable, and I think everybody should be able to get behind. Really wasn't asked about the taking away some of the energy credits. When it comes to energy, we're responsible for the feedstock, and the Energy and Commerce is responsible for the energy. I kind of saw that as a landmine, and so I had a lot of folks from Kansas, and from Minnesota, and Iowa, and Illinois that approached me, members that were really concerned with some of that early on, and I said, well, go talk to leadership, and they did, and they took care of it.
We'll be back with more in just a moment on this Kansas Ag Report.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com.
Also joining us, a couple of other members of the Kansas Ag Media, Greg Akagi from WIBW, the Kansas Ag Network, Julia Debus from Kansas Wheat, asking questions of not only Committee Chair G.T. Thompson of Pennsylvania, but Kansas Big First District Congressman Tracey Mann. Mr. Chairman, how are you going to find more money? Because some of your colleagues want to cut everything they can. You're advocating for more dollars. Where might that come from?
Well, I think I have the support of leadership on this. I've never seen such a strong support from leadership. I think things have really lined up. Well, we got a lot of work to do, and it's intense. We're working hard. From here, I'm going to go back to Pennsylvania and speak to a group in Pittsburgh, and I'm going to fly to Spokane, Washington, and over to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and do the same things there, and be home by dinner on Friday. So we're working hard to do that. They're naysayers. Right now, I'm just focusing though on Tracey and I are focused on getting as much and as best information we can to write the farm bill that America needs. And then we'll thread the needle when it comes to the politics and the finances. I'll lead that. We'll figure out, but I don't want either the politics or the money to be a limiting factor of us designing the farm bill that we should have. And will we be able to afford to do everything that we would like to do? Well, I don't know the answer to that yet. but we're going to work hard. And I'll be honest with you, there's never been a time when there's more money sitting around in Washington. Between the COVID CARES Act dollars,
it's a matter of priority. There's enough money. It's a matter of how do we prioritize.
That's right. And what's important to America, and I think if we have the conversation, most people would agree that, you know, that 2% of what we spend federally is probably one of the highest priorities that American families would have.
Congressman Mann, if I can ask you a question. I mean, we're in at a wheat farm today, but talk to a lot of livestock producers. There's no grass. They've used their feed this winter. Young farmers, experienced farmers, everybody is having to take those cows, those good herds, and they're hurting. You know, the federal government can't take care of everything, but as we look at this and the timing with the Farm Bill, are there some things looking maybe at some disaster assistance for these that are now in their third year of this record drought?
Yeah, but it is heartbreaking. I have producers reach out to me all the time. One last night texted me saying they're starting to sell off their cow herd. They live up by you know, in north central Kansas. Things were dire in Kansas 6 months ago, and we've gotten very little rain since then. So well aware of that. Are there some opportunities in the Farm Bill? Potentially. Are there some ways to, you know, maybe stabilize some of the disaster assistance programs, make them more permanent? Those are all things we're going to look at, and that's why we're out listening and talking to folks.
Those are some comments earlier this week on a farm in central Kansas with the chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, Glen G.T. Thompson. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Premier Farm and Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken. We choose Premier Farm and Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
Feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Hi, my name is Rachel and I'm an agronomist from K-State, and today we're going to talk about corn germination and emergence. So I don't know if you have a favorite recipe, but there's certain ingredients that you have to make your favorite recipe. I really like chocolate chip cookies, and I have to have all the right things to make my chocolate chip cookies. When we're talking about corn germination, there are three main ingredients that we need to have for that corn seed to germinate successfully. The first is moisture. The second is oxygen, and the third is warmth. So if we're thinking about moisture, the first step of the germination process is water going into the seed. It's a process called imbibing. The corn is imbibing the water, and it has to take in 30% of its weight in water. And if you were to compare that to humans, if you weigh 100 pounds, that would be like you drinking 3.5 gallons of water. So it takes in a lot of water to start that process. When that water comes into the seed, that starts all the chemical reactions that are happening inside that seed for the germination process to work. And in order for those chemical reactions to happen, oxygen has to be present so that the corn seed can respire. That's the process of those chemical reactions happening. If we have oxygen, we have water, but there's a really important ingredient we haven't talked about yet, and that's warmth. So corn has a base temperature of 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which means that it needs to be at least 50 degrees for that corn plant to grow and develop. So that's the same for a corn seed too. If you put a corn seed in the soil and the soil temperature is not 50 degrees, your corn plant will not be able to germinate. It could actually rot in the soil if it doesn't have the warmth it needs to really get going. And Germination, when we're talking about soil temperature, is really important for farmers because you want to make sure that your soil temperature is evenly, consistently between 50 and 55 degrees before you put your corn seeds in the ground to make sure that they all come up at the same time. So we talked about germination, which is the process of the embryo exiting the seed. So the radicle is the first part that comes out of the seed and it grows down and becomes the root. The coleoptile grows out of the embryo side of the seed and grows up, and that's the first thing we see. Emergence is the process of that plant coming up above the ground where we can see it. So germination is the embryo exiting the seed, and emergence would be when that plant comes above the ground where we can see it. And those are the two steps of germination and emergence for corn.
Premier Farm and Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken. We choose Premier Farm and Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
Feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
The 2023 Hard Winter Wheat Tour is hitting the road May 15th through the 18th. The tour, sponsored by the Wheat Quality Council, brings in participants from around the world who are tied to the wheat industry but may never have been in the fields. These individuals can interact with Kansas farmers, network with their peers, learn more about wheat production, and assess the condition and yield potential of the hard winter wheat crop across the state of Kansas. Participants gain a first-hand understanding of what it takes for farmers to grow, manage, harvest, and market the crop. Over the 3-day tour, they will canvass the state's wheat crop from Manhattan to Colby to Wichita and back again. Along the way, they will stop every 15 miles or so to estimate the yields in wheat fields along the route. Every car will carry at least one wheat tour veteran who is not only familiar with the route, but also basic agronomy and the yield estimate formula. This allows participants to ask questions about the wheat that they are seeing, as well as diseases, growing conditions, field observations, and more. Participants are sure to see drought conditions across much of the state. As of April 9th, Kansas winter wheat condition rated 61% poor to very poor, 26% fair, and only 13% good to excellent, according to the USDA NASS. Topsoil moisture supply is rated 80% short to very short, and subsoil moisture is 83% short to very short.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
The Young Farmers and Ranchers Discussion Meet challenges Young Farm Bureau members to analyze agricultural issues and consider solutions that best meet the needs of the industry. The competition is designed to stimulate a committee meeting where discussion and active participation are expected from each participant. Maggie Brakeville from Riley County will represent Kansas at the American Farm Bureau Federation Annual Convention in January. Maggie currently works as a staff attorney for the Kansas Department of Agriculture in the areas of large animal health, emergency management, open records, and food safety. She is a graduate of Louisiana Tech University and the University of Kansas School of Law. Maggie is involved with her county farm bureau, is active in her church community, and loves volunteering with youth livestock projects.
Premier Farm and Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken. We choose Premier Farm and Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
Feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.
Imagine turning soybean oil, used cooking oils, and waste animal fats into fuel so amazing it drives U.S. jobs and our economy forward. Learn more about biodiesel at americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
Congratulations to Franklin County Farm Bureau, who is this year's County Innovation Award winner for education. The county hosted a bi-weekly Ag Education Summer Series at the Ottawa Recreation Commission Summer Camp. More than 60 students from grades kindergarten through 5th grade learned about food production, livestock care, and soil health. The program allowed students to experience what 4-H has to offer, regardless of being a farm kid or city kid. Franklin County Farm Bureau shared their passion for agriculture and created a fun and hands-on learning experience for students. Several local producers and agribusiness owners were recruited to present session topics. This series sparked a desire in campers and staff for more agriculture education within classrooms, and the strong relationships and partnerships forged will continue to positively impact countywide agriculture education efforts in the future.
When it comes to my child and the sports they love, I want them to be ready for their moment. So to fuel their bodies and their potential, I choose an authentic source of protein that has the nutrients they need to succeed and a taste they already love, with one simple ingredient: beef.
Kansas State University veterinarian Greg Hanslacek is urging cattle producers to review their herd's vaccination and parasite control programs as summer approaches. He said vaccinations should be given to protect cows and bulls against all major reproductive infectious diseases before breeding season. These vaccinations should be given 45 to 60 days prior to the bulls being turned in with the cows. In addition, Hanslacek recommends the use of insecticidal ear tags to control flies this summer. Cows and bulls both should be tagged with 2 tags per animal, and the type of insecticide used should be rotated periodically. He said if the same products with the same insecticide continue to be used, it will cause resistance. Therefore, Hanslacek said the type of insecticide being used should be rotated every 2 or 3 years in order to maintain effectiveness. Insecticidal ear tags should be removed and disposed of at the end of pasture season, as this also will help prevent resistance in fly populations. For more information on preparing cattle for summer, contact the local extension office.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
Good morning, this is Jake McCall with Pinion Ag. The grain and oilseed markets have taken a steady decline recently, with the new crop corn contract taking out lows going back to February 2022. A large part of the recent news cycle has been focused on extremely weak Brazilian basis, allowing for Chinese importers to pick up large quantities in an effort to fill up their reserves. In fact, there have been reports of Brazilian soybeans being imported to the U.S., not surprising with the enormous size of the Brazilian crop. In the Black Sea region, Russian negotiators continue to cast doubt on the Ukrainian grain initiative, as they see Russian products are not being allowed to be shipped due to Western sanctions. While the original deal was to be revisited every 120 days, Russian diplomats say that this time it will expire at 60 days, which will be May 18th. Here in the U.S., planting season is well underway, even with cooler weather in much of the country. According to the USDA's crop progress report on Monday, corn planting was at 14% complete, while beans were at 9%. From that same report on Monday, winter wheat conditions stand at just 26% good or excellent, as drought persists in western Kansas and other important areas. We have seen some good moisture throughout southern and western Kansas this week, which has been very much welcomed. Tensions remain high between China, the U.S., and Taiwan, with military maneuvers around the island recently. Peace remains for now, but China is determined to bring Taiwan back under Chinese control one way or another. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at 888-452-8751. I'm Jake McCall with Pinion Ag, and I hope you have a safe and productive day.
Rural families are built different. You deal with the highs and lows of rural living. You support your family, your church, and your community. You often work sun up to sun down, and you do these things because you love it. But life isn't always easy.
Sometimes as farmers or ranchers, you're supposed to be this big tough person. You know, like I've got this ground, I've got these cattle. You're not supposed to struggle. Everybody's struggling. And sometimes it's just having that conversation with a friend for them to soften a little bit, to be able to have an open conversation.
There is help for anyone struggling with mental health. Text or call 988 to be connected to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Talk to someone. Above all, don't suffer in silence. For more resources, visit kfb.org/Rural Minds Matter.
That's our show this week. Be social with us, KansasAgReport.net, or our social media channels. Continue to pray for rain. I'm Ken Rogers. We'll see you next week on the Kansas Ag Report.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.